You're listening to Potty Mouth Radio, the home of movies, music, television, and comedy. We watch a thing. We watch a thing. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to We Watched a Thing, where you're just going to have to trust us one last time. One last time, Dave. How you doing?
I'm good, and they should trust us because we actually did watch a thing.
We did what the label says. Yeah. How you been, mate?
Yeah, pretty good. Not sick for a change, which is nice.
That's good. And you even managed to find the time to watch this 12-hour piece of crap. So let's get into it.
I'm still watching it now.
Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning is a 2025 American action spy film directed by Christopher McQuarrie from a screenplay he wrote with Eric Jendresen. It is, of course, the direct sequel to Dead Reckoning Part 1, which I believe has now just been retconned to just be Dead Reckoning, and the 8th installment in the Mission Impossible film series overall. It stars, of course, Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt, alongside Hayley Atwell, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, Henry Czerny, and Angela Bassett. And what is it about, Dave?
It is the 15th and final round of Ethan Hunt and co versus the Entity.
Yes.
A super AI that is pretty much taken over. I mean, this franchise has gone, as so often happens in these, it's when you need to up the ante every time, but it's we've gone from being a Bourne-style spy thing with a little bit of, tech that we don't have, like the masks and stuff, to this is more akin to Bond, Brosnan-era Bond a lot of the time in terms of the almost sci-fi elements.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's him and co with all the governments of the world against him.
Yeah.
Marching to the beat of his own Tom Cruise gun and, taking on the super AI.
Now, I can't remember. I'm sure that we or I did Dead Reckoning on the show. Were you co-host by then? Did you do Dead Reckoning with me?
No, that would have been about, 4 years ago or something that came out.
Yeah, okay.
Because that was the one he filmed during COVID, like in the thick of lockdown, because you had all of those leaked audio bites of him yelling at crew members not wearing masks and stuff, and he put his own money in to keep production going over in Europe so that people had jobs and, being the side of Tom Cruise that we all know and love versus the crazy Scientologist side that we all pretend isn't there.
So I don't think then that you and I have ever actually discussed Mission Impossible.
We have discussed Fallout. No, not Fallout. No, wait on. We did do part 1 because we had a long conversation about the ravine jump stunt.
Okay, yeah,
and how much CG there is in this supposedly CG-free. Yeah.
I just want to start the discussion with, would you class yourself as a Mission Impossible fan? I know that you're a Bond
100%,
fan.
100%.
You are,
This is pound for pound one of the strongest franchises in movie history. There's only one dud note in my... you'll get your chance.
Okay, yeah.
There is one dud note, thanks John Woo, in an otherwise pretty strong franchise, I think.
Right,
I think it is one of the best of its kind.
So we are coming in here with quite polar views then, because I think that the first one is the best one, and that's a 7 out of 10 at best.
Yeah, wow.
So I rewatched the first one just recently, actually, and it's a fine movie. It's fine, but this franchise has become nothing like that first movie. This is Fast and the Furious. I was
going to say that's
this
the
is
corollary
Fast and the
I should have
Furious
drawn.
that people pretend isn't Fast and the Furious. This is Fast and the Furious to people who think they're too good for Fast and the Furious. This franchise is.
I think that's a little. It's the same sort of trajectory where every increment gets kind of crazier and crazier in terms of suspension of disbelief with the tech. But I think where Fast and the Furious has gone from grounded, small, basic, let's face it, a remake of Point Break, to fucking Austin Powers silliness. I think this is the threats and the technology have sort of gone instead of just being a little ahead of now, it's like, science fiction level stuff. But I think, leaving aside that, I think the film itself is still grounded in reality. You're not driving.
You're dreaming.
Let me
you
finish
are
my
dreaming
sentence.
if you think any of these films are grounded in reality.
Let me finish my point.
Let me finish my point. This is exactly what I was saying. This is Fast and Furious for people who think they're too good for Fast and Furious, and that includes you. You can't defend this film because you're just making my point.
What I mean is, yes, he's obviously almost a superhero. It's ridiculous that there's one guy that is the only person on the planet. All of that, yes, but that you could say that about Bond, any of them. It's ridiculous that the CIA would have probably 50,000 people in it. That Ethan Hunt is the only guy that's ridiculous, obviously. Yeah. But even though the giant action set pieces are unlikely, they don't defy the laws of physics and things like. I don't think. I think.
Okay, we'll get to that. I mean, that's wrong. That's purely wrong.
You stretch them a little bit, but it's not driving cars. It's not playing pool with a spherical nuclear weapon through the street.
Okay. We'll get to it. What I think is the best action sequence in this film is far and away the least believable thing I've ever seen. So we'll get to that. But what were your expectations coming into this then? You were expecting to enjoy it?
Oh, I was expecting to enjoy it because I know these films are enjoyable. I was... the last film, because unlike you, I think Fallout is one of the greatest action movies ever. I think it's an absolute standout film. And Dead Reckoning, in parentheses, part 1...
was a huge dud.
I don't think it was a huge dud, but I think it unavoidably was a step down because... nothing's ever going to continue at that level. And there were things in there that I didn't like that were not Tom or Macquarie's fault. Obviously, Beck Ferg, as Wayne likes to call her, had Silo on the boil and had made the decision that rather than one film, she'd, star in an ongoing series. You can't blame her for that, but that obviously had implications. They had to write her out, bring in Hayley Atwell. Never going to complain about that. But the introduction of the Entity as kind of the big bad really took this franchise in a different direction because while yes, in theory, who knows where AI is going to go? It's advancing very quickly. The idea that this is like war games stuff. That there's this that AI will get around all of the stop gaps, all of the things, defy any unfettered explosion of evil that no one can control. It's kind of silly. And even though there was some very cool...
And the stakes are just too high. The stakes are too high. We're at the point again where it is literally we're talking end of the world.
It's no longer an espionage film. Akin to Fast and the Furious, you've now got one person who can save the planet.
Who can travel between locations in the click of a finger and you don't know how it's explained.
So I was a little hesitant with this one because I didn't like that direction, and obviously this being the direct sequel to that, it's going to follow that same trajectory, and it did. I don't think there was as much kind of coolness about the Entity. There was some really great scenes in Dead Reckoning Part 1 where you saw the Entity's control over surveillance technology and stuff. So you had people literally being removed in real time. I say Morales in particular being removed in real time from security camera footage and stuff. And that was a really cool way to use, that computer enemy. We didn't have as much of that, which was a shame. But I think overall the film worked for me. I think the action set pieces, one in particular, were outstanding. It's too long, but I expected the length because it is the coda on a 30-year franchise,
So we're probably thinking of different scenes, I suspect.
Oh wow!
So we'll get there. I walked in I had low expectations, but not like bottom of the floor expectations. I expected it to be a mediocre movie, and my expectations were not met.
Oh God!
Until about an hour in, I thought the first hour of this film is some of the worst. I was in my head. I was like, "This is a 2 out of 10. This is such a bad movie." The start of this movie was awful. By the end, I was like, "That's one of the best experiences I've had at the cinema this year." It really flipped on me. I landed in a good place, not a high place. I landed in a good place. So
I would be astonished if this is higher than a 6 out of 10 for you.
The first 45 minutes of this movie are absolute garbage. This has one of the worst screenplays in the history of cinema. And the worst part of it is that because Dead Reckoning Part 1 was a flop, and there's no denying that, it was a box office flop. It barely scraped its budget back, and I have to be honest, this looks like it's heading in the same direction.
Well, this has got to be up with like Cleopatra in adjusted dollars for most expensive film ever made.
300 to 400.
Yeah.
Insane.
And
so far, it has. I mean, it came out the same day. It's doing well,
but
it's doing okay. I mean, it came out the same day as Lilo and Stitch.
It needs to do Avatar business to make the budget back.
It came out the same day as Lilo and Stitch, and so far, it's made half the amount that has. So it's not like it's setting the world on fire. But the biggest problem is that because Dead Reckoning Part 1 was such a flop, the first 45 minutes of this film, the amount of flashbacks that are in this film, this is a 2-hour 40 film, which it doesn't need to be. I'm going to say 45 to 50 minutes of this film is made up of flashbacks, most of which are to the previous film. Like, there's a lot of just crap flashbacks to the whole rest of the franchise, which you kind of expect because it's the last one. They're trying to send everything off. But the amount of flashbacks to the previous film is out of this world ridiculous. When you have like a 15-minute sequence of the President of the United States explaining to Ethan Hunt what he's doing, there is literally like a 15-minute voiceover of him watching a video where she's like, "You have this key. You got this key from here, and you did this, and you did
Can't
this."
argue with that.
Because they have to explain the previous movie because they're expecting no one saw it. That's why they took part 2 off the title.
The cruciform key and all the rest. Yeah, they walk you through that.
The screenplay of this movie is
times.
garbage. It's absolute garbage. And it stays garbage the whole way. What won me over is there are some good action sequences. I like Simon Pegg. The things that won me over are not things that should be winning you over about a movie like this, is basically my point. I liked it by the end, which surprised me. I hate it. The first hour of this movie, I honestly was sitting on like a 2. I'm guessing you felt different to that, but you can understand where I'm coming from.
It absolutely, the last 45, 50 minutes of this is the strongest part of this film by far.
Yeah, see, I disagree. Okay.
I think, yes, going through it, I was like, oh God, more flashbacks. But I understood the reason for them. I was like, well, fuck, if I was Macquarie, I'd probably have him in as well, because you kind of can't not have massive probably didn't need as much as he had.
You didn't need that much.
But
yeah.
They were obviously worried people weren't going to understand, because the whole entity is such a convoluted premise for a villain that if you haven't seen the previous film, you can't just come into it going, so where are we up to? What's the entity doing now? You need to fucking go explain the fact that it's a superpowered AI and there's this cruciform key, and the cruciform key unlocks a thing in a sunken sub, and the sunken sub was this, the blah, 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 blah. The plot of the previous film was convoluted.
Oh, yeah. Way more convoluted than this one.
Yeah. And that's part of the issue I had with that film is, unlike all the previous ones where they were just really solid espionage films where things made sense. You either had an evil criminal, or they were an evil government spy agency or whatever. It's a formula that we're familiar with, because the last film went, well, how do we top that? In the same way that all of these things do, is the Russians. We've had the Russians as bad guys. We've had the South Africans as bad guys. Fuck, what's next? Ooh, AI. That's the only way we can go.
Yeah.
But it obviously makes it more complicated. And if you haven't seen that film coming into this, I understand that they were, very nervous about that, and they course corrected. Fine. I was saying that to myself the whole way through, going, more flashback. And they were trying to do a kind of Bond, No Time to Die emotional beat as well, because it is the end of the franchise and it's a 30-year franchise. And so you had a lot of callbacks to the previous films, all
Yeah.
the way back to the first one. Some more successful than others. I didn't need Shea Wiggum to be the fucking son of John Voight. I don't think that added anything.
Didn't need
you
that.
had this
the
really
only callback I liked was, the dude from the classic knife scene in the first one.
That
dude became
that was great.
That was the only callback that worked for me and the only one I needed.
I mean, the idea that he was immediately shipped off to fucking Siberia for the next 30 years because Ethan Hunt broke in and stole. No, you'd be firing the security people. You're not going to fire some coder who was in the bathroom with diarrhea at the time.
Yeah,
but it was really nice to see him. I did genuinely like the moment with Ethan after they've kind of saved the day and everything, where he says, "I'm sorry for what I did to your life." He's like, "You saved my life. I wouldn't have met your wife. That was really touching. That was really nice. Luther's send-off was nice.
See, here's the thing to me. When the only emotional beat in this film that works is from a character who was a minor character in the first film and comes back in this, that's a problem. That is a big problem, that is the only emotional beat in this film that worked for me.
They landed a bit better for me, probably because I've got more of an attachment to the series.
Yeah. It's undeniable that, this is going to work better for people who are fans of this franchise.
I'm not trying to defend the writing, by the way, because there's god-awful lines. And
I'm not trying to... if people like Mission Impossible, they'll probably like this film. So,
I think so. I definitely think it is...
So this is one of those cases where you should only listen to one half of this review, depending on which side of the fence you're already
One thing I will
on.
say, if you like action films, go see this on the big screen, because some of the action in this I think is pretty fucking spectacular.
Let's get to the action. I did not like this film until the submarine scene. I thought that everything before that was trash. It was trash. But I liked the juxtaposition of, the rest of his team, at the center trying to access the GPS coordinates. I liked all that action there with the Russian and, Haley Atwell escaping with the Eskimo lady. That was all good. I liked Tom Cruise on the sub. To me, the submarine is far and away the best sequence in this film. There's really only two action sets in this film, really.
There's a lot of unnecessary running.
Plane.
There are scenes of him running because
running does not action make, though.
Well, and the thing that annoyed me a little bit is he always runs. We've known that since day one. He loves to run, and usually it works. And you're just sitting there going, "Fuck, he's older than me. Look how fit the cunt is." In this, he runs when time is of the essence and he's trying to catch someone, and he could just as easily steal a car or something.
Yeah.
Why he's running across that long fucking bridge...
Yes.
To try and save Luther.
Yes.
I mean, Jesus Christ, I don't care how fast he is. That's like a 10-minute fucking sprint.
Yeah.
Steal
we get
a car. You're trying to save your guy.
Yeah. Then we get him running away from the explosion with Luther. There's lots of running, but I would say there's only two action sequences in the film, which is the submarine and the plane at the end.
I mean, put them together, and that's about 90 minutes of action. They're long action scenes.
To me, the submarine sequence is far and away the best sequence in this film. It's the only one that really has any kind of tension to it. It also lacks any believability. You talk about the laws of physics. As soon as he's getting out of that sub and he just takes the fucking suit off and still swims to the top, he's deep fucking down, and somehow he's able to swim. He gets the bends. That dude is fucking dead, Dave. He is dead. He is dead. That is dead parrot.
The implication is the parrot is dead when he gets to the surface. They said that initially. They said you won't survive because they're in the Arctic. The sub-zero temperatures will slow everything down and will be able to revive you. And you've taken the suits. Changed the
he didn't wear the fucking suit.
No, but he acclimatized his body with it. The idea was that he was on the treadmill with the mask on, and that was pumping a nitrogen whatever mix through to prep him. The fact that he took the suit off didn't change the fact that he changed his blood. If you're being consistent with the science in inverted commas.
Yeah, I just don't know how you can defend this against films like Fast and Furious with a scene like that.
It's because they create the consistent internal reality. introduce the science. It's science we probably don't fucking have, but they introduce it, they explain it, and they're consistent within the story to it. Fast and the Furious doesn't even pretend to do that. It's just fucking full-on fantasy science fiction. I would compare this with that ludicrous bullshit in Meg 2, where Jason Statham expels air from his nasal cavity so that he can withstand
blood.
That was fucking garbage, because nothing they said made it okay that he could do that and not explode and fucking die.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about this. I don't think
they invented a science for the film, which is fine.
They invented a magic suit, but then he wasn't wearing the suit. The suit was meant to help him on his ascension as well, not just his descent.
Yeah, which is why he fucking barely made it.
But he was going to barely make it anyway. They already said even with the suit, you are going to get the bends. Like, they said all this to him.
Oh, yeah.
And then he did it all without the suit anyway.
I'm not saying there's not some suspension of disbelief. I'm saying they do a better job of maintaining internal consistency with their logic than those other films.
But to me, the subsequence was... And look, maybe it's just because I'm a bit of a, I have a soft spot for the ocean. Sphere is one of my favorite movies. But... yeah, to me, that was easily the best sequence in the film.
I mean, did you not like the big, finale?
It was fine. Here's my thing about the plane. The plane is only an interesting scene to watch if you, as an audience member, know that it's a physical stunt. And that's where I'm getting sick of Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise, is that if you went into this movie blind and just watched it, that sequence is not as good as action movies in some other films. It's that little thing in the back of your head going, oh, wow, he's really hanging onto that plane, that makes that an interesting scene to watch.
You think?
100%. And once again, as we spoke about with, the jump in the last film, he did that jump. He did that jump with a whole bunch of ropes on and stuff that were edited out. And, the entire landscape in that sequence is CG'd. So it's not a practical shot. It's the same, the actor who's flying the plane is not really flying the plane. If you look at the behind the scenes, there's a dude in a green suit. There is still... It's not like these are fully practical shots.
Oh, no,
I'm not trying to downplay what Tom Cruise did.
I don't think anyone believes they do these without a million safety precautions and harnesses and all of that. I think.
But my thing is, so then what's the point? What's the point? And that's what I'm saying. The point is so that you watch the film with that knowledge in mind, and it instantly makes that scene better for you. I don't think the scene is shot great. I don't think it's edited great. I don't think it's any better than most other action sequences in films, but I think they're playing a trick on you, and the trick is that you have that knowledge while you watch the scene, and that makes you appreciate it more. And that's my beef with that scene. Whereas, and the sub was the same. He was, obviously not at that depth, but that was a fully practical set, real water and stuff. And the fact that he did that doesn't make the scene any better for me. I don't watch that scene and think it looks any better than the submarine in Sphere.
I don't think because the stunts are so much part of the marketing for these films.
That's the thing, it's marketing.
I've done all of my wowing before I even walk into the cinema, so I'm not watching it going, this is better because I know it's practical. Because I did that. So
what
during
about the
trailer.
plane scene was it for you then? Because it's just not a very interesting scene.
I think if it was just the plane scene, it would be good, but it would be similar to we've seen Indiana Jones has done, the Dial of Destiny had some similar plane stuff, that we've seen similar sort of plane things. I think this is longer and more convoluted in terms of, the various things he has to do. But I think what makes that last 45 minutes really work for me is I think it very successfully jumps back and forth between three different sort of tense scenarios. You've got mortally wounded Benji and co.
See, that sequence worked for me.
You've got Bill, what's his name, his wife and young African-American guy.
That I didn't care so much about.
But I think bringing back, because I didn't care, I don't even remember the African-American guy, whether he was in the previous one or not.
Same, I have no idea who that guy was.
He has very little character. For a minute, I thought he was going to be the president's son because they mentioned her son. So I didn't care about him. I did care about nice Inuit lady and Bill, what's his name?
Yeah.
I wanted them to live, so that there was a bit of tension there. Definitely tension with Benji. And the fact that we were going, I think, really successfully between those three situations. And they were all interconnected because Haley Atwell and Benji that couldn't do their thing until Tom.
Do what he did, yeah.
We were flashing to Tom going, oh, fuck, how's he going to possibly do the thing he needs to do? And if he doesn't do it, then they're going to die. And then these people are going to... I think that was a very well-crafted extensive
I think it's
piece.
okay. I think the screenplay took a lot of cheats to get to that point. I mean, even, the whole thing is that they get ambushed by the government. The whole thing, they all want the same thing. That entire sequence is just there to get to the point where he has to chase him on a plane.
Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. I got to say, I think old mate Henry Czerny from Revenge, his character's like a Deus Ex Machina, whatever we need him to be. Is he on Hunt's side? Is he Hunt's enemy? He's flipped back and forth over the franchise.
Exactly.
Last time we saw him, he was, they were good mates. Now he's kind of, nah, we need to stop him. Shea Wiggum was like the fucking briefcase in Pulp Fiction. He was literally just a character inserted who served no purpose, had no character development or any reason for being there other than to go, he's the son of the guy from the first film.
Yeah.
See how we've come back full circle? There was some lazy ass writing, which for the guy that wrote Usual Suspects, I expect better writing.
Yeah, and that to me is why the plane sequence didn't fully work. I liked the stuff with Benji in the server room. That all had a point. The plane didn't. And that's my issue with, as I was saying, the stunts. The whole point of doing the practical stunts.
He said, I've got a plane. In fact, I've got two.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing.
The whole point of doing that sequence practically, like I said, I think is to trick the viewer. I have to ask, I know that you finally started watching The Rehearsal, Nathan Fielder's new show.
Okay. I'm interested to see how this is going to relate.
Have you finished this season yet?
No.
Okay.
I got sick and then I forgot to go back to it.
Okay.
I've watched, I think, about 5. And I should tell viewers, if like me and all right-thinking people, you think Nathan Fielder is one of the most annoying fucking people on the planet, this series is actually very, very good. And he is not annoying, and it is a genuinely fascinating show. Season 2.
It's extremely fascinating. So let me say this. I don't want to ruin anything for you, but I do think that this is an important discussion to have. Mm-hmm. And I know that you're not, you're enjoying The Rehearsal, you're not fully invested. So hopefully this isn't going to ruin anything for you. If anyone hasn't finished The Rehearsal yet, which seems unlikely because everyone who's watching this show is going on about how incredible the finale was. So I think if you haven't seen the finale yet, skip ahead a little bit. Dave, it's revealed in the finale that Nathan spent the last 2 years getting his pilot's license. Not only that, he has worked all the way up to his commercial pilot's license, flying a 737.
Travolta style-y.
Well, way more than anyone's ever done. And so he finds a loophole. He is effectively the fastest pilot to ever pilot a 737 full of passengers, because you're meant to have 10,000 hours of flying before you can do that with paid passengers. If they're actors, it's okay. So in the finale, he pilots a 737 full of passengers.
Are they aware that...
They're aware that he's the one
flying? The comedian is flying? Oh, shit.
Yeah, they are. They're aware of it. Now, that is a wild stunt. And that is a stunt that actually has a purpose. And when you watch the episode, it has so much to say and so much meaning behind it. And that's where I watch something like that compared to Tom Cruise hanging off the plane in this. And I'm like... This has no purpose. It has no meaning. The sequence doesn't need to be there. It's kind of fun to watch, but it doesn't look any better than it would if he wasn't actually doing it.
You mean it? The fact that they didn't just CG the whole thing, that they went to the expense of doing it all because it's Tom Cruise and he likes to do that.
Well, no, they did it for marketing. They did it to trick the viewer.
What I mean is your issue with it the fact that it is that rather than just a CG fest, or the fact that they're in biplanes at all, and that chase even happens.
Yeah, the fact that it doesn't mean anything is my issue with it. The fact that you go to all this effort to stage this huge stunt, film this huge thing. This movie, like we said, has a $300 to $400 billion budget, and it's like, well, for what? Like, say something meaningful. Like, do something meaningful here. And I know that that's not what people come into Mission Impossible expecting, but that doesn't mean that they can't do it. That's my issue with it more than anything.
Do you reckon that the whole biplane set piece, do you think that was a significant part of the budget? I wouldn't have thought so.
I would
have thought that the submarine would be a much more expensive one, and all the other location stuff and sets. The biplane, given as you said, yes, they're flying, but
I think
a lot of it's probably CG background extensions and stuff. They're probably just flying in circles.
Yeah, but I think if you think about like just the safety protocols alone. And I think in terms of filming time, I think they would have spent more time filming that sequence than a lot of other ones.
Would have had it's the one that would have had a lot. Well, then again, some of that submarine stuff when the nukes start sort of falling and the choreographing that, and if you had to do a resetting for another take, would have been a fucking nightmare with that one.
True. Yeah. I mean, again, look. If you like this movie, you like this movie. And I probably sound like an old curmudgeon being like, this movie should have something to say. I don't think every movie does. I'm the guy who likes Fast and Furious. But my thing is...
This franchise for you sits in an uncomfortable middle ground where it's not as fun as Fast and the Furious, but it's not as serious as, I don't know, fucking Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy or something.
And that is exactly... You've hit the nail on the head, because here's my problem, is that this feels like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Fast and Furious knows exactly what it is, and it doesn't pretend to be anything else. This movie is Fast and Furious, and it wants you to think that it's high art. And I just feel like if you want to do that, give me a reason to believe that you're high art. Don't say we're high art because Tom Cruise is hanging off a real plane, because it doesn't mean anything. He's only doing that to trick your brain into thinking that makes it a good sequence.
So you know now we're going to have to do an entire run through and watch of all of the Bond films.
Well, I'm expecting 1-star reviews based off this episode. I'm sure that I've pissed people off with my take. It's a fine movie. Like I said, I hated the first hour. By the end, I'm landing on like a 6 out of 10, which is pretty high.
That's your second highest grade you've ever given to a Mission Impossible film.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is the second best in the franchise.
It is. This is the second best film in the franchise after the first one. It 100% is. Because, Dead Reckoning I really didn't like. Fallout I thought was fine, but I think it had a lot of the same issues this did. This movie's too long and has too much exposition. And I think if you cut a lot of that out, this could have been better for me. But yeah, how are you scoring this one?
Like weirdly, we're not a million miles away. I based on the last 45 minutes, I would have been an 8 out of 10. But it is too long. There is some pretty bad dialogue and bad writing, some very clumsy writing, which, if it wasn't Chris McQuarrie, probably wouldn't bother me as much. But when this is the guy that's written, the best in this franchise and fucking Usual Suspects, and he's better than this screenplay. So I'm probably a 7 on this.
Yeah,
it's better than Dead Reckoning, but it's not on par with Fallout or Rogue Nation or even Ghost Protocol for me.
Yeah, totally fair.
I would recommend that if you have even a modicum of affection for this franchise, go see this on a big screen. Don't wait for streaming or something. If you're watching it, the stuff that you're watching for, you need a big screen to really get the most out of it. But go to the toilet first.
I mean, honestly, or like, there's a million spots in this movie that you could go to the toilet. You could throw a stone in this movie and you'd be fine to go to the toilet. It's fine. All right, next.
One thought before we wrap, as a public service announcement, I'm going to do a short, well, not even a mini review. I'm just going to do a short warning to people who may look at a cast list that includes the likes of Natalie Portman, John Krasinski, and the like, and Guy Ritchie directing, and think, oh, that's probably a good time. The Fountain of Youth is not a good time. That is a god awful piece of shit. It's the entire plot of this is a absolute retread of stuff we've seen a million times before in Indiana Jones, in National's, what's it called, National Treasure.
I thought we were done talking
Dora.
about Final Reckoning.
Unbelievable that all these people signed on for this. It's not like Guy Ritchie's name is a guarantee of quality. I can't believe the name. The money truck must have been backed up, because this thing is absolute. It's only a hair's breadth better than Tomb Raider Cradle of Life, which is one of the worst pieces of shit ever. This is Jungle Cruise. This is all of the worst things about big budget streaming action adventure fare. Don't waste your time. It's fucking terrible.
Okay. All right. Well, next week, how are you feeling about some Wes Anderson in our eyeballs?
Are we not getting 28 years later this week? No?
No, I don't think so.
Fuck.
I think maybe on Thursday, Ballerina comes out.
Oh, that's not Wes Anderson. You told. I was assuming there was nothing to watch.
Well, are we going to record on Wednesday though?
Oh, I don't know. I'm trying to find excuses. What fucking Wes Anderson movie is there?
Well, he's got a new movie coming out, The Phoenician Scheme, starring Benicio del Toro. I mean, as always with the Wes Anderson cast,
wow,
it's huge. Michael Cera, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, Jeffrey Wright, Scarlett Johansson.
Fuck.
If you're not keen, I'll see if our good friend Julio from the Contrarians can join me for it. Because they recently did an episode on Tommy Boy, and I was very, very glad that he was not extremely negative. Co-host of his, Alex, loves Tommy Boy, probably even more than I do from the sound of it. Julio said after watching he was like a 2.5, but after discussing he moved up to like a 3.5.
Well, that's where I am on it. Alex, I understand loving it. Alex loves American wrestling, so his gauge on entertainment is not in sync with my own.
So maybe
no slight on Alex. He's a lovely fellow.
So maybe we should see if Julio can join us, because I don't think I've ever spoken about a Wes Anderson film without Julio. So
if I can manage to get to it and I have a free like a voucher or something to see it for free, I'll do it. I'm not going to spend human dollars on it, but I will spend human dollars on Ballerina. So
we can do Ballerina the week after. That's for sure.
All right, fine.
Yeah. Okay. All right. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at pottymouthradio.com or pottymouthradio@gmail.com. Go and join the Facebook listener community, and we'll catch you next week.
We will indeed. Cheerio.